There's a little warm jacket on. Oh, so thanks everybody for coming. I think I know everybody. I'm Samantha Scott, and this is our Power Hour, the last one of the year. So thanks for coming out. And this is Kendra. She's with WINK. She's really an authority in terms of media and how to determine the ROI for your placements. If you're considering spending any kind of money in advertising, or even just looking at different ways to get your brand out there, it's really important to know where you can get the most bang for your buck. So buckle up. It's going to be a fun ride. And turn it over to Kendra.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Kendra Sutton. I'm with WINK TV. Just a little quick background on me. Before I transitioned to the TV side, I did media buying in the NBA and the NHL, as well as private consulting for several pro teams before I returned to Fort Myers and decided that I wanted to have a life. And so I transitioned into media because it was easy. Basically, I just had to learn the software and of whatever the company was using, but knew multiple things. So I work for WINK. I deal strictly in TV, but I really enjoy going into a client, sitting down and helping educate them, even if they're doing other things. I'm a firm believer in don't negative sell. If it works, don't break it, that kind of thing. But also, I like to go in and sit down with them and see if their goal is to get into television, how can they do that cost effectively, cost efficiently, and get the most bang for their buck. And what I find most times, which is why we're here today, they don't really know how to truly evaluate their ROI or media in a conversion to cost per thousand, which is really where you want to be, either cost per point or cost per thousand. So that's what we're going to go through today. So I thank everybody for coming out and sharing some time. You have a hard copy presentation. It can also be emailed. And in here, we'll go through some of the things that are just general information, jargon, lingo, that kind of thing, and really kind of get to the basics of the meat and potatoes of evaluation, because I think that's why we're all here. So the first thing I would like to show you about the market, we have 5 broadcast stations in the market. So what you're going to see on the screen as well as in front of you is the 5-station market grid. There is a bit of a difference in this market with the way we're aligned, because WINK and WXCW are within the same building. NBC and ABC are within the same building. And then Fox is a standalone in Cape Coral owned by Scripps. The difference between the Waterman Group versus our group is they are direct competitors. Now, how does that affect you from a media buying standpoint? You have to completely buy 2 viewing audiences with 2 budgets of money is the first thing. Because when you have someone that is a dedicated Today Show watcher versus a Good Morning America, you're gonna have to buy those 2 viewers as separate viewers. The strategy of WINK and WXCW that is definitely elevated us to the number 1 and 3 position in the market is that we do not compete against each other. The strategy lineup, which is beneficial to advertisers, especially if they have a smaller budget and they want to stretch it, they can get 2 stations with 1 pot of money because we never compete against each other. When we're in news, WXCW is usually in talk or entertainment. When they're in WINK news product, over on WXCW, we're usually in the opposite. So you're never competing for the same viewer for your product or your service. So I wanted to at least share that with you. Also, it gives you a lineup. If you've never had it all on one sheet where you can look at it at one time and you're getting several sheets, that makes it easy. So if you don't mind, we will go to the next page. Do we have a clicker for the, no.
Oh,
This one. Oh, here's Kelsey. That's the clicker. Yeah, okay, good. So the title of this is How to Plan and Evaluate Media to Know Your ROI. And if you don't mind, we'll go to the next one. We'll kind of go through some of these front ones quickly so that we can get to the really interesting part of evaluation. But what we're going to go through today is marketing to your customer, media planning the right way, evaluating different advertising. I call it kind of smoke and mirrors. The real thing you want to get to is the apples to apples. I call it the fruit of the ROI. If you're comparing everything on an even comparison, then you know what your true cost is. So next. So media planning consists of decisions that are made to answer the question, what is the best means of delivering advertisements to prospective purchasers of my brand, product, or service? The decision process that goes into defining marketing, as we all know, especially here with the agency, there's a lot of planning, there's a lot of research, figuring out a target market, a demo, what has worked, what hasn't worked. And now we have so many things available to us, from digital, which is, I call it the wild, wild west, to different capacities. The way TV is even changing. Now that we have Netflix, we have streaming, we have all these different things. So how do we all keep evolving and still be cost efficient? Well, we have to do that by getting the right message in front of the right people at the right time with the right amount of money to generate the right response. Now that sounds easy, but as we all know, the next one, you can read through this, but this is just, when I sit down and brainstorm with people, you know, who are we talking to? What do we know about them? Who are the people? Bless you. What are their buying tendencies? What should my positioning be? How am I different than my competitor? And the list goes on and on and on. And those are the things that then help us get to defining the message, defining the means, and defining a budget. So those are always very important. The essential reasons to advertise, again, we can just kind of skim through these. Everybody wants to grow their business. Everybody wants to see sales and traffic coming through their door and their phones ringing. This market is a different market. Our demographic is definitely different versus if you go to Tampa or Orlando. Buyers outside of our area have a hard time buying this market. I've been doing this now for 13 years, and I still get buyers, even within an agency, when they change buyers, they're perplexed all over again. You know, if this is a difficult market to buy because, one, we're seasonal. So where the rest of the country is normally, we're a fourth and a first quarter market, the rest of the country is usually quiet then. And this is our slamming time. So when they're doing their planning and they're not familiar with their market, they come in with a low cost per point goal of what they want to buy the market for. They call us, they start availing, and we're coming in 3 times the amount of what their goals are, and everybody starts freaking out because they've already started planning this, they've already submitted it, and they've already gotten approval on it. Now what do they do? And so that's where this all kind of comes in on the planning side. It's always good to know. So with many choices, how do you make the best evaluation? Of course, there's all kinds of areas that we now have available to us. We'll go ahead and go to the next one, Kelsey. And there's so much jargon. The ones that I'm really going to focus on today are reach and frequency are very important in television, radio, etc. And also your cost per point and your cost per thousand, depending on how an agency buys. For the ease of this evaluation, I'm going to use cost per thousand, because once we turn everything to an even scale of thousands, then it's an easy evaluation. So on the next page, just to kind of give you an idea, when I've gone into a business and they say, oh, I can buy a radio, you know, it's only $20 a spot. And my first question is, how many people are you going to reach? And then they'll tell me, and I say, okay, now take that dollar amount times 10. So if it's $20, it's really $200 to reach the same amount of TV, because TV is measured in thousands, radio is measured in hundreds, cable is measured by subscribers, and I put that in quotes, and there's reason for that. Not ever, especially now more than ever. Cable is not monitored by Nielsen, which is the rating service that evaluates all of us in TV. A subscriber is counted as a subscriber household is counted by cable. So when they present to you, they'll say this many people are available if you sign up with, we'll just say Comcast. It doesn't mean that that person is actually using their cable service though. They can be using their internet service and they still count them as a subscriber, but it's in the total number. And so now you think you're getting one audience and you may not be getting them at all. Because now we have, for example, my brother's a millennial or a Gen Xer, they have Roku and the Apple and Amazon Prime, and I mean, they're doing all these things outside, and HD antenna, they're in Vermont, by the way. They're not living down here. But, I do hear stories as we go outside of the 3-county DMA, Charlotte, Collier, and Lee. When you get out towards Henry, Glades, Arcadia, DeSoto counties, you do still find people are using different types of systems. So it's not always a solid number, as I like to say. Newspaper is measured by a number of copies that are sold or distributed. So for example, they could go and put 150 copies at the hotel or at the 7-Eleven or anywhere. As you know, we go in and the next day there's still a big stack of papers. The guy comes and gets them, takes them, and puts the new stack in. But because it was distributed and it was sold, they count it as that paper was read, and it doesn't always mean it was. So I tell people take that in, take it into account. And in all fairness, somebody could say to me, well, what about if it goes to commercial break and somebody gets up and goes to the bathroom? So, everybody, there is no perfect world in any of this, for sure. Digital, like I said, cost per thousand, cost per click. I'm hearing so many terms now. You all can educate me, because I sure can educate you on that one. And then direct mail, of course, is the response rate. So those are the measurements that we'll go through some examples of putting them on an apples-to-apples comparison. TV terms, I just kind of went through that. As far as definitions, if anybody's not familiar, I made a little cheat sheet here. We'll go to the coverage map real quick, Kelsey, if you don't mind. Thank you. So in our area, this is our DMA area, and our total population, 1.2 million. That is the opportunity of people that you have to market to. So television households, 506,000. It's a lot of households. If you notice, Comcast subscribership is half the number. So that's going to become important. Just kind of keep that in your mind as we go into this. Half the subscribership of what the broadcast world is, because they hit 100%. So automatically, your dollar investment here, you're getting this. Here, you're getting that. And then it starts breaking down, because these are called alternative delivery systems. Satellite, DirecTV, and Dish, they take another portion of the market. And now you have CenturyLink and you have other cable households, which is very important. I added that into this because it's becoming a big problem for agencies, and I'm going to go over that. We have Livestream now, and we have Summit via Media. So, and then you have over here, as I mentioned, when you get out to the rural areas that are on HD antennas, rabbit ears, as we used to call them, that. It does still exist. Reach. These are two important things when we're doing the evaluation of your ROI. You have to have enough ads to reach the audience, and you have to have enough frequency. So the reach meaning, and this is where WINK and CW come in as a great combination. WINK is an 800-pound gorilla, so they get the reach. We'll hit 50,000 people in the 6 o'clock news. And then you have WXCW, who has half the audience, but a quarter of the price, so you can buy 3 or 4 spots for the same amount of money. Now you have frequency, and it's still the WINK news product. So the combination of the two is what gives you the best strategy. So this is an example, and this is where we're going to start getting into the fun. This is why I'm sharing this with you. This is the biggest time period I personally am challenged by when I go into a business, or we have somebody come into the market with a decent sized budget, and they'll say, well, I'm just going to buy the Today Show. It has a bit bigger number than you do, and it does. But then I start picking their brain on, but do you only want that viewer, or do you want, with NBC being the other 800-pound gorilla, do you want half their audience and half my audience? Because obviously they're not watching each other. So that would give you the full market pie in that time period of the most amount of people. So here's my analysis to them when I do that. If you have enough budget money, scenario is, why don't you look at buying a couple days of them, and then why don't you look at buying a couple days of me? Because that's a significant price difference. So I gave an example. Here's the TV number households during 7 to 9 on the CBS early show. Here's the Today Show. So if you take the rate divided by the number of viewers in the household, this is our cost per thousand. This is their cost per thousand. Quite a bit. So
if you decided, well, you know what, now you've made me think about this, I have $650 or $700 to spend, I was only gonna buy one spot there a week, that's not getting them frequency. So if you're looking for frequency, my suggestion is 3 times that is 600, still less money, but now take that times 3. So now you're getting, 71,000 people versus 24,000 people. You're getting seen by the viewing audience 3 times, and it's still the same amount of money. So it just depends on what the goal is, what the budget is. Not everybody has that to work with. But if somebody does, my suggestion always is buy both viewing audiences. They're the biggest viewing audiences in the time period 7 to 9. But we can even go in and look and see against each other what days between Monday through Friday are higher views. So say, for example, Monday, Tuesday, and Friday have a higher viewing audience on NBC. That's over there, I'll tell them, these are their 3 highest days and these are my 3 highest days. So it's all about strategy and maximizing cost, efficiency, effectiveness. Next. So this is a really good example. I pulled an overnight sheet. These come down straight from Nielsen. We are monitored on these every single night. We receive them first thing in the morning, so we know how we performed the day before, from 4A to 4A, 24 hours. And it will tell us how we performed, how cable performed, etc. So my example here is, on Wink, at 5 to 6 p.m., we have Wink News. On this particular day, or actually this was a snapshot period of the 30-day, but we had a 5.1 rating. By the way, 1 rating point is rounded at 5,100 people. So if you have a 5.1 around 5,100 people, you're looking at about 26,000 people watching at that point in time. Over on WXCW, from 5 to 6, same time period, they had a 3.6. And here's where cable comes in. These 15 stations, which are your top WGCU, the USA Channel, CNN, AMC, TLC, MTV, Family, Bravo, VH1, etc. All 15 of these stations, you had to buy all 15 to get a 3.6, which is the same that one spot got in Dr. Phil on CW. So that kind of shows you it's so fragmented that you'd have to buy so many stations to still get the same one-time bang over here or over here. And then on the next page, I'll show you even more so. This is where your evaluations really start coming in. I always encourage anyone, if you have a media rep you're working with, challenge them. I mean, challenge them to do these things with you or for you if you don't know how to do it. Because I can not only pull my own information, I can pull my competitors' information. We're all on the same system. So if we want to evaluate ourselves against somebody else and know our strengths and weaknesses, we can definitely find it out for you. It's extra work, but it's worth it. So that analogy I just gave you, we had a 5.1. Our cost is $225. So that'd be $44.12 if you divide that cost per point. WXCW, $185 for that same 30-second commercial. They got a 3.6. Their cost is $51.38. So when you look at that, somebody's like, oh my goodness, I can get cable so cheap. I mean, they came in the door the other day, $500 for a package on like 15 stations. I mean, I'm going to get 15 stations and you're only giving me one spot on one station. Well, look, those 15 channels I just pulled, that $500 package, that would make it 33 a spot at a 3.6. It took 15 stations to get a 3.6. When you divide that, there's your cost per thousand. And that's why I call it smoke and mirrors. It looks cheap, but you can't get enough frequency when you're spread that thin across so many channels. You're definitely not getting the reach, because if you were getting the reach, they would be monitored by Nielsen also, and they're not. You have to have a minimum of a 1 rating to be, which is 5,000 people. per viewing period, you know, whether it's 5 a.m. or 5 p.m. or whatever. So that's why I say which one really is the most cost efficient. And that's what I'm up against every day. And so that's why I try and go in and educate people, because it's hard to go in against somebody that has a small business, has a small budget, and somebody comes in the door and says, oh, well, I can get you this, or I can get you a Facebook ad, or I can get you whatever for $500. And that's within their budget. And they think, well, that's inexpensive. But if it's hitting 50 people, or it's hitting 200 people and not 2,000 or 20,000, they could have gotten a lot more stretch and a lot more audience for what their option was for $500. So that's what I just try and educate people on. And when you sit down and you show them in the hard numbers, it's really eye-opening. And as I said to somebody the other day, if I come in your business and I walk out and I leave you with 1 or 2 pieces of information and you don't even buy me, but from this day forward, you can ask the tough questions, or you can be inquisitive, or you can even kind of take and figure this out on your own, then I did my job. Whether you buy me or not, I feel I did my job because I helped your business. So next page, please, ma'am. So this is what is really affecting agencies in the last 90 days. Agencies outside this market, as well as I have found some inside the market, but especially outside the market, that are not familiar that we have other cable agencies besides Comcast. So 3 years ago, Comcast owned the market and had like this whole 62% of the market. CenturyLink entered the market, and their challenge for the last 3 years, well, they came in the market, probably 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the first 3 years, their challenge was they didn't have fiber optics everywhere where they could.
They had like a quarter of Cape Coral.
Correct.
Yeah.
So it provided a new opportunity to go somewhere else if they weren't happy. But when people would call, they couldn't accommodate everyone. So that was their challenge. They have very much expanded. They still have some areas they're working with, but I mean, they have a lot of saturation, because they used to be like this 0.4, 0.5 number, and look how they're cutting into Comcast pie now. So Comcast used to have the whole 62%. They've fallen now to 52%. And this was as of July, by the way, this number. CenturyLink is now taking 8.3% of the market. Livestream and Summit, this is where the agencies are getting surprised. So I just met with an agency on the East Coast that handles some auto dealers. And she said, well, we bought you and we bought so-and-so, and then we bought cable because it covers everything where you are. Knowing where the dealership was located in Bonita, I said to her, are you sure that's what you're getting? Because in Bonita, all of these homeowners associations, gated communities, and I was one of them, everybody was in 20-year contracts on these Comcast bundles. Everybody's expiration's coming up now, and they've been happening for the last year. A lot of people have gone away and now are independent outside the contract to pick who they want. Most of the Bonita Bay, Pelican Marsh, Pelican Landing, everything around there is now going Livestream, Summit. A lot of Naples, Marco Island is Summit. So they're buying Comcast thinking they're getting this whole 62% of the market with their money. And when I had to show them how fragmented the market is now becoming and how the ground is being lost, disappointed, because within a 15-mile radius of those dealerships, I called and we did a study. 23 of the communities aren't even on Comcast. They're not even going to see them. So all that money that was just spent, all the people in their target radius and their target market are not even on that provider.
It's good to know, because it's a lot of target markets for a lot of folks, because you have your 45 to 65 snowbirds.
Correct.
Still income.
And that's a big demo here. 35, 64, and 50 plus is a huge demo here. So, yes, ma'am.
I'm a little confused. What's the must carry rule? Is that still in effect for cables and direct, like Dish and networks and things like that?
Well,
They have to carry the local stations, don't they?
Yes, but it's no longer through their retrans signal. They have their own. So that's why I have Via Media up here. They are actually a standalone, but they're buying off a CenturyLink signal, which CenturyLink is the one paying us for a retransmission signal, as well as the other broadcast stations. So the answer is yes, but they are now buying direct. They don't have to go through and piggyback anymore. So they're not even getting that Comcast audience now. Is everybody carrying broadcast? Absolutely. But that goes to the next thing. Local ad insertion. Up until last year when Comcast started Interconnect, they have 128 channels, I think, and don't hold me to that. They may have gone up a little bit or down just a little bit. Of that, last year, only 48 channels, you were allowed to put your commercial into it. And I'm going to show you that when we move to the next slide, but I'm going to go through this real quick. That is significant because here's the analogy I tell people. For every $1 you have, if you're handing me dollar bills, if you're buying over there, you're throwing 38 cents into this pot and you're throwing the difference over here. So it's because this part of the market, the other 30% that's not here, doesn't have any local ad insertion. I had a client in Lehigh, which, I mean, I'm sure you've seen all about closets. They've been around for years. He was furious. He bought a cable package and he has DirecTV. And after about a week, he called the rep and said, I've been watching for a week. I've never seen an ad. And I'm like, oh, they don't get inserted on. So a year ago, they did start a program called Interconnect. It is expensive. It does buy you access in to certain channels. They are up to 50, as far as what I was told by a Comcast rep a couple weeks ago. So they have, they have 2 more. But that's it. That's all you can get unless you buy into this very expensive package. And then it does get you in. By the time you buy this, you're 100% covered. Because all NBC, ABC, Fox, CBS, WXCW, our signals are all 100% of the market. So the other breakdown of cable is buying zones. Somebody will say to me, well, I'm just buying Cape Coral because I'm in Cape Coral and it's so much cheaper. It gets more and more expensive. The more you keep cutting this pie smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, and by the time you buy a Cape Coral audience, your cost per thousand it's crazy if you really do the analysis. So I have on here no local cable ad insertion on all channels. Interconnect, you can accomplish it, but it is expensive. But broadcast reaches all Comcast, all other providers, meaning all of these, Dish, Direct, and even those who don't subscribe, which is over the air or red ears. So you get 100% of the market. So every dollar you invest is fully spent, fully invested. Yes. So here's an example. I rounded for ease, but if you remember on the map I showed you, 506,000 households in our market. So just to make it even numbers, I just rounded it to 500,000. 70%, that 30% you're talking about throwing away the 30 cents, I just rounded it again. This is what the amount of audience. If you have a 70% is the difference. So what that gives you is 350,000 people that are watching broadcast and premium paid channels. And what I'm trying to do here for you is break down this market. So kind of stick with me here for a moment. Once I get that number difference between cable and broadcast, that tells me there's 150,000 total households out of 1.2 million remaining audience to advertise to. So then you take those 150,000 cable, divided by the 50 channels you're allowed to put your commercial on, and now we're down to 3,000 households. Then you divide it, if you're going to buy zones, you divide it by 7 zones, you're down to about 429 households. So for somebody that wants to advertise only to the 5 miles around them or 10 miles around them, and they don't mind paying the price, but to me, anymore, the area we live in, we're so transient. I mean, we travel, we go for food, we go for entertainment. If you're gonna reach the people in Fort Myers and you're like, no, they really don't come over here, why not invite them? I mean, especially if you can buy it on a cheaper cost per thousand versus buying and drilling down to just buying a zone that's gonna cost you more money. It's no different than I tell people in broadcast TV. If you tell me that you want 7 to 9 a.m. only guaranteed, that's the only area you're gonna run, it's gonna be that $225 I showed you. If you allow me to do what's called a rotator and be flexible and go 5 a.m. to 9 a.m., it can land in any of my morning news, because we know the viewership's there, we know it's gonna hit your target market. I can bring your rate down to like 165, because you're allowing me flexibility. So it's no different here. If you buy 7 zones, you buy all the zones, or you drill it down to 1. It's gonna be more expensive if I guarantee you 1 zone or 1 time period. So it's the same concept if you wanna compare the analogy. So by the time now we're down to a zone, what is $10 a spot actually becomes $23 cost per thousand. If you were to buy Wink News on WXCW 7 to 10 a.m., it's a $7 cost per thousand. So it's all about getting your numbers on an even playing field and then doing the division, doing the math, and seeing where you really are. And sometimes it doesn't, for example, there's this one place in Cape Coral, and it's one little store, and she just wanted the people around, 5-10 mile radius at most. It is a specialty product. I don't know if everybody would drive for it. In a situation like that, I would say, yeah. I mean, if that's in your budget, then do it. Also, Sal that owns 2 Meatballs in the Kitchen, and when he had Taste of New York back in those days, he told me he wanted to buy cable. He showed me the schedule, and he was in like 28 stations, and I said, don't pay for all that extra stuff. We narrowed him down, and that was when like Master Chef was coming out and all these cooking shows, Iron Chef and stuff. I said, pay a little bit more money per spot, but go where your niche is. Go to the person that's interested in that. I'm not against buying it, but buy it smart. If you're gonna buy it smart. So, next one.
Sometimes it is worth it to pay a little bit more for your product.
Yeah.
If you have a specific product.
Absolutely.
And marketing, that's so
Yeah.
important. Anything in marketing has to be targeted. So
Correct.
instead of just the spray and pray method of putting it out there.
I love that term. Yeah, I do. Because of the fact sometimes it's just they see a price and don't look at the method behind it. And then when they don't get results, whether it's TV, radio, it doesn't matter. When they don't get results, they say, I tried that and it didn't work.
Blanket statement.
But they don't look into why it didn't work. And so that's always a question when somebody tells me that, I'm like, okay, hold on a minute. Let's talk about this. So where was it? Where did it run? How many times,
How
you
are
start
you
asking.
tracking it?
Correct. Big. And that's in there too. And this is a direct mail example. Response rate is % of customers that respond. So if you had 5,000 pieces that were mailed for, say, a free service call campaign and 650 people responded, you do the math, it's going to be, about 1 cent or 1.3% response. Has this changed?
No.
Samantha, as I say, direct mail response is usually 1 to 2 to consider it successful.
Direct mail, like TV, is so focused on audience.
Yeah.
So it really depends on who you're sending to, what your response rate's gonna be. If you just buy a general list, that's
Yeah.
pretty average.
Yeah.
Targeted lists, owned lists, like customer databases, response rates are different, they're higher,
Mhm.
but it depends on what you're doing and who you're sending to.
Right. And I remind people, I'm a consumer too. I'm probably one of the worst because I go in to see a new client, I end up buying 10 things they have in there before they even sign a schedule. I'm like, oh, I love that, so I am just as able to sell to as anybody else, so I always hear everybody say, oh, when I get those flyers in my mail, I walk straight to the garage and they go in the recycle bin. But I also know, even in my own neighborhood, I had one person that called a painter guy and, he ended up upselling and he made a job and it paid for, the one person paid for his paint. So even if we didn't get anybody else, that's the thing. If it works and you really have worked with somebody to get it defined and targeted, I'm a believer in the marketing wheel, trying some different things, finding what works and then sticking with it until something else new comes along, like digital. I'll keep saying that because every day I'm fascinated by all the different changes. So example, if the total cost for that mailing, printing, your agency fee, your flyer, your designer, your setup, your postage, even at bulk rate, etc., was whatever, then you look at your cost divided by your response rate, 43.23 per sale. So with that, it was almost the same cost as buying the $44 commercial on Wink. So as you can see, there's an apples to apples, no matter what method of madness or what form of media. And again, it's not about one thing over the other. It's about showing you how, when you're, especially if you don't work with someone that can help guide you in the business, agency, like pushing the envelope or somebody, if you're trying to do this on your own, I meet so many business owners that are so frustrated and overwhelmed because everybody comes at them, everybody's number one, everybody has the best story, everybody has the best thing. And when they say that to me, I say, but if they sat down and showed you why, did they pull out the numbers? And the answer always is, nope, they just came in with a proposal and said, see, I put this together and I think this will work for you and this will be great for your business and this is a special fire sale we have going. Doesn't mean if it's not going to hit your target or it's not going to, some people have some really special products. It's not for everyone. So you really need to figure out the demographic. If it's a male, you need to look at male time periods where they're successful, not the, I love the,
Right.
yeah. So I think as we wind down,
Time for Q&A.
just closing thoughts is get the best bang for your buck, cost efficiently and effectively. Buyer beware, that's the biggest thing. That's the other thing I'll ask business owners is when they felt like something wasn't effective, I ask them how much have they actually asked someone to show them or have they looked into learning and kind of taking the reins a bit to protect themselves, and the answer is always, I don't have time to deal with that. And so, again, if you have a good rep that'll help you with that, and you develop that relationship, and you develop that trust, and you show them, they feel comfortable when you bring something in and like, I don't know, I'd stay away from that, let's do this month. Most times they'll listen if you can really show them the hard numbers. Cost effectiveness can be positioned creatively, of course, by using our stations, using an agency. I love working with you guys, so I appreciate you having me here. And then this is for entertainment value. The next slide. Yeah, I saw this like 5 years ago, and I thought this was funny.
And just a couple of thoughts on that, to tag on to what Kendra is saying, because she's right on all those points, is I think you probably agree that mixed marketing is really where it's at. You can't put all of your eggs in one basket and expect everything to come from that one.
No.
And that strategic measurement is so important because looking at the dollars spent, the 44 per commercial versus like direct mail, for example, if you closed a deal, what's the value of that? That's also part of that. So sub cost of measuring, okay, now we got the exposure on Wink, now what did we get from that? Direct mail, what did we get from that, the cost, and then did you recoup it? Because, like we just had a client do direct mail as an example, and they spent $1,000 on it, but they made $13,000 in business. So, that's a pretty good return. Do the same thing with Wink or with any broadcast or any kind of marketing you do. It's just all about measurement.
Absolutely.
Making sure you're sourcing where do people find your information that's accurate.
Yeah. And the age-old question with TV is, well, how do you track TV? And is there a solid system? No. But if the phone's ringing and people are coming through your door and you just started advertising or you've stayed consistent with your advertising, I also remind them your message is so important. Because if you don't have the right message, it's not going to work. Hey, I'm the #1 animal lover. I say there's two things. Do not hurt an animal or a kid. I will go after your jugular. But sometimes putting your dog in the commercial with fake dentures for the end close, like things like that, it's just not selling your product or your business sometimes. And you don't want to call somebody's baby ugly, as I say. But it is a responsibility on my part to kind of guide them through and still find a way sometimes to work those things into it. But if they're adamant about it, but the end goal is asking them if they really want it. Do you really want people through your door? Why don't we talk about your product or your service, or why you're better than somebody else, or why they should make the drive? So, here's a great example. I have a dealer in Cape Coral, and he's had some challenges, and he doesn't know what to do. And they hired a new agency, and when I went to meet with him, I said, everybody keeps talking about buying one zone around the dealership, and they're using the term, we're going to buy in his backyard. Well, when we pulled the demographics, those demographics are not his demographics in his backyard.
Or let's look at the customer base.
Yeah, he has $90,000 customized 4x4 trucks and muscle cars, and the demographic in a 5-mile radius is females 35-64, working women. So I kind of had to dispute that with the agency on that theory, and my theory instead was, you're missing the message. You've got to come up with, why is he worth driving to, where he's located? Because Plattner's been doing it for years, since I was a kid, growing up inland in Florida. My stepfather, people from over here in Fort Myers we knew, and what is their slogan? It's worth the drive to the country. And people will drive 45 minutes to go get a deal, to go save $3,000 or $4,000. Yeah,
That's how
Their daughters, they were on there
The bell
forever.
Yeah. Exactly. Jana and
Yeah.
and people would drive. So I said, that's not the reason. You're not giving them a reason. So message is important, whether it's target, whether it's direct mail or whatever the medium is. So, any questions?
How are you competing with internet buys?
We're getting a lot. We're getting a lot. The good thing about having a news source is the information is always relevant. You're always changing. And when you have an advertiser that links up with you, we have definitely found it significantly helps their SEO. I have one client in Cape Coral that actually cut his budget for what he was paying because it took him from page 2 that he had been paying for to the number 2 position on page 1. So there is more demand for it than we've seen before.
How's it compare cost-wise?
I will tell you, NBC's been doing it longer than us. Their cost per 1,000 is less than ours. They're about 3 years ahead of us, and there's a reason for that. When WXCW and WINK came together instead of against each other, there were a lot of things that needed refined for the 2 stations to line up like this and for this strategy to work. And it became the focus of the Swartzel family very much. And I understood from day one when they laid it out that there were a lot of things that were gonna have to be changed and tweaked. We are a TV station, we sell spot TV, we will get into digital, but we need to take us where we need to go. Which the strategy worked because CW was number 5 in the market and they're now number 3 in 3 years. So the plan worked, the plan for WINK worked, and now the focus has been on digital.
So your question, Jane, was about advertising on this website?
Well, that's one aspect of it,
Yeah.
just
But the
internet.
demand
Do you
is,
compete with general internet advertising like Google Ads and things like that?
and the irony of that too, Jane, is that Jim even has a portion of our site out to like Google Ads and things like that. Because he wanted revenue coming in while we were doing this 3 years of growth and transition. So, he even outsourced to that, which used to drive me crazy because people that I had tried to sell digital now were running on our site and they weren't running with me, they were running through Google. But that's being pulled back. One of the things that's very effective, and I don't know about other resources because this is not an area I'm going to sit and try and talk like I know about extensively at all. Pre-roll does exceedingly well.
We did that, a lot of that when I worked at Arbor Free Man, like, cause we had so much, you just have to have the visual, like and it worked amazing for us.
Well, the other thing is with our station, it's a non-skip. So it's a forced watch. And what we see in the analytics is if you're gonna watch a story that you wanna watch, you have to watch the commercial first. Because it is something of interest, they will sit the 15 seconds or the 10 seconds. They will not click out. And they will wait for the story. So for example, the gentleman, that unfortunately was hitting, that was killed. They wanted to see the video footage or who was just hearing about it, and advertisers did very, very well in the last 24 hours. So that when people ask me, I tell them over a banner ad, if you're going to ask me, over something, I would tell you pre-roll.
And I'd even ask that from the digital perspective, that online advertising as it relates to pay-per-click, whether you're doing some kind of visual stuff, because you can do that, or on social media, it's very powerful and it's visual. So no longer a boosting post is powerful, but if you have a multi-product ad because it slides, if you have a video ad, any of those kinds of things that are visual are really powerful and paying off. And the thing too, when you're considering digital, is what you're trying to do. Are you trying to help your website because you need traffic there because you're e-commerce, or are you just trying to get brand exposure and try to make sales? Because it depends on what you're doing and where you invest your money. Depending on what your market is, Google can be very, very expensive, Google and things together. Whereas if you're doing something on Facebook or Facebook and Instagram, because they're owned by the same company, you can see cost per clicks of approximately 17 to 34 cents if you're really targeting and perform well. And you can do remarketing through Facebook and Instagram that you used to only be able to do on Google. And Google prices could be 1, 2, 3, depends on what market you're in and what you're trying to do. So again, I think it's a mix, and it depends what your goals are. Always try to pick a strategy.
I agree. And you may be familiar with it, being a nonprofit,
We're not selling anything.
No. I'm saying there's inventory that is allotted from a PSA standpoint.
Right.
Through the news division.
Every time I ask about that, I kind of get the cold shoulder from most of the stations in town. Very difficult to find a niche to get into, except on Fox.
If you have a spot, if you have a spot that is produced and you send it, it gets put in the rotation. So I'm not sure.
So what's the average spot length now? 20 seconds or
30?
30.
And I will even share with you, if you have a 15, or a 10, they can slide you in more frequently because in the commercial business, everything needs to be a 30-second increment pod. So, for example, Dunkin's Donuts does 15-second spots, and it has to equal 30. So, Rec Warehouse has 10-second spots. So we'll marry them, and then we'll throw a 5-second ID. So now we've created a 30-second pod. So I tell people that's another little insider tip thing, because they're always having to find somebody to marry those two. And if you have that availability versus everybody else has 30s, it gives you an advantage.
Do you know who we send those to?
For a nonprofit,
Yeah.
they would go to Nicole Stewart. That just changed.
You can look for program director or PSA director, depending on who you're sending to. Radio has the same thing. Yeah, they're required to do PSAs as well.
That's correct. So I know you, like I said, I've sat on boards. I know what it's like.
I know, but they're not interested. They're really not interested. Radio also. I'm looking more for a talk show venue.
Oh, yeah. Well,
and Spanish language. So I
get out in the
hinterlands. There are some out there, but they're just not really interested unless you're willing to actually spend money too. So they want you to buy a schedule, and then they'll give you something for it.
Yeah.
And the same thing with Univision. This stuff. They actually did finally give us 3 minutes for free the first time. I came back the second time and said, look, this is a public service requirement that you can fill, check it off your list, and they still want to meet by a $500 schedule, so.
What about?
Well,
PTE?
3 minutes is a long time for a PA, like, if you're.
Well, it
looking
wasn't
for
a
your
PSA, it was an interview segment.
And see, like, for example, on major broadcast networks, we don't even, CBS, for example, I'm not talking about Fox, because they have a massive amount of
Fox
it.
will have it.
But, well, because they have a whole different system, but CBS, if you look at CBS, NBC, et cetera, we do not have much paid programming, period, even available. I know Cornerstone bought, between Facilla and Cornerstone, they bought what little bit we had for the 30-minute segments. We just don't have it because the network feeds us, of course, the CBS programming, and then what syndication is bought, is filled with the others. So we don't have the availability like a Fox network. CW has a little bit more, like in the mornings from 3 to 6, on the weekends kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think one slot in the middle of the day.
Mhm.
But it's hard. I understand. your
Yeah, I'm not
challenge.
talking about a 30-minute block on networks, but,
3 minutes.
2
on a
to
major
3
network
minutes
is
would
still
be
big.
interesting to do. Especially since it fits into morning programming on some stations.
For that, I'd recommend trying to get with the anchors and get an on-air interview. Or if you're
That's my
having,
goal.
or if you're having an event, have John Treeweller, as you know.
I used to know.
Yeah, because then you get 4 hours of cut-ins and teases and interviews.
We were able to get on the morning blend really
Right.
easily.
Yeah, they're easy. Yeah.
They,
Yeah.
They have the time to do it.
Yeah. And they do about an average of a 0.3 with that show. So when you look at that, that's about 150 people. And I tell people, it has a purpose. You just have to know what the purpose, you have to go in with the right expectation. I call it an instant response, because if there's 150 people watching that morning and 20 call you got an instant response. But tomorrow, you are out of mind because there's now 5 more segments and 5 more people. So you're instantly replaced. But if you can capture and make sure your message is right and you're on target and you utilize that 5 minutes, it gets, depending on what your product is or your event is or your service is, if it gets you that much for that day, it serves its purpose. You just have to have the right expectation. And people that go in and buy it and then think they're going to still be getting calls from 2 weeks because I did one segment, it doesn't happen that way.
We're
And I used to
not
sell that show.
We're not for profit too. So
Oh,
we
yeah, there
try
you
to
go.
just
You
jump
can,
in
yeah.
where we can.
Yeah, absolutely. I would take every one of them we can get.
Yeah.
I would.
Well, thank you, Kendra.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.